it's Medium Jenny Lee, and I'm here with Woo Woo Book Review number 7. Today I am reviewing a self-published fictional book, which is something a little different. I haven't read a fictional book for the Woo Woo Book Review yet. And I actually didn't even know that this would make it into the Woo Woo Book Review until I read it, and it turned out to be a lot of stuff that fits in the woo woo category. A little bit of a backstory in this for me personally. I started an Etsy store a long time ago for my art and photography. It's Widow Photo Art, if you ever want to look me up on there. And I did it off and on over time, and I finally, just within the last year, have it consistently up with stuff in it. But I've had it for a really long time. So because I've had this Etsy store for a really long time, I've also collected a lot of favorites over the years of things that I liked, things that I thought other people might like that I could buy for gifts. And, you know, out of all the stuff that you favorite, how much of it do you actually purchase? Probably a small percentage. So I was going through my favorites one day, and most of the things in it were no longer available because I favorited them like 10 years ago, and they don't exist anymore. You know, the shop closed down, or they sold all that stuff, or it was a one item thing, like, you know, it was an individual, this is the only one that exists thing, and, you know, somebody bought it 8 years ago or whatever. So I was clearing out my favorites, deleting stuff that didn't exist anymore. And I found something that I liked a really long time ago, and it was still on there. And I was like, well, I guess this means that I need to buy it. And this is what it was. It's called The Tidewater Possession. It's by an author named D.A. Clifford. I'm pretty sure she still has an Etsy shop because I purchased this probably last summer, I think. Now, the thing that hooked me on this, not only because it was still on there after all this time, but it said it had one left. Now, at the time, I was like, oh god, there's only one left. I need to buy it right now. Now, most likely, does the lady have a huge box of her books sitting around? Probably. And as soon as I bought this one, she probably put up another one. Very possible. But anyway, I bought it, sat on my bookshelf for probably about a year, and I finally got a chance to read it. Now, what grabbed my attention about it on Etsy originally was that it was written by a lady who lives in Virginia, in Tidewater. And it's about Virginia. It takes place in Virginia, in Tidewater. I have a good history of time spent in the Tidewater area, which is like Hampton Roads, Newport News, Norfolk, Suffolk, Portsmouth, all those places. Virginia Beach. And the other thing that caught my attention about it, it was about a demonic possession in the 1700s. I was like, well, that sounds really interesting. And at the time, my husband was actually kind of working on a story that was similar to this. It was going to be a story about a witch in like the 1600s Virginia. So I was like, awesome. Favorite. However many years later, 10 years later, I buy it. And then I read it. And it was lovely because she signed it for me. This is just a self-published book. It is not put out by a publisher of any sort. And what was great about that was that there was very few typos. I'm sure she probably had someone help her edit it. She did not acknowledge whether someone helped her edit it, but kudos to her for having this massive book. It's got 451 pages, I think. 451 pages. and there was very few typos, maybe 2 or 3. That's amazing. To give you a rundown of the story, it takes place in the 1700s, right after revolutionary times of 1795 in Tidewater, Virginia, and it does take place, it does include some farmers and a plantation owner. So in 1795 in Virginia, in a plantation, there are slaves that are part of the story. I'll not give away too much information about what happens with them and to them, but they are a part of the story. There, the woo-woo things about this story. There's some witchcraft. There's some ghosts. There's a demonic possession. And part of the witchcraft stuff was actually stuff that that spiritual people do now, like grounding yourself and using white light protection. And what's really weird, here's some really weird stuff, okay? This is how weird life works. I liked this book 10 years ago because it took place in Virginia, and it had demonic possession in it. Fast forward to now, I'm working as a medium and a psychic, where a lot of that stuff, witchy kind of stuff, plays a part. I did not know about that kind of stuff when I liked this book originally. So that's really strange that I liked this book. I wanted to purchase this book a long time ago. I didn't purchase it a long time ago. And when I did finally purchase it, a lot of the stuff in the story is stuff that I'm way more familiar with now than I would have been 10 years ago. There's some woo-woo stuff for you right there. The other weird thing, the universe works in mysterious ways, people. The other weird thing that happened was that when I chose to read this book, and I may have explained this in another previous woo-woo book review, but sometimes I like to choose books at random. So this is how weird I am, and maybe it's the teacher in me, I don't know. Liking to organize things. I have a written out list of all the books that I own that I have not read, and each one has a number. Okay. And then I have a little baggie of numbers that corresponds to the list. And when I finish a book, most of the time, if I don't have one I really want to read, or I haven't gone to the library and found something, I'll go to my random bag of books and I'll pull out a number. And this is how I got this book to read. I pulled it out of my random bag. And while I was reading it, we went to Tidewater for vacation. So I'm sitting in the eastern shore of Virginia, which is, I don't know if the eastern shore is considered part of Tidewater. I guess it is, because it's across the Chesapeake Bay from what is considered the Tidewater area. Reading this book. Like, how weird is that? The more I talk about it, the weirder it is. Anyway, a basic plot of the story is there's a dude and his grandma, and they live on a farm. And there's this other guy who thinks that he's almighty and powerful, a plantation owner guy, and he wants the grandmother and grandson's farm property for his own. So he goes to these real sketchy lengths to get this property from the grandmother and the grandson. But he does not know that the grandmother is a witch, and she puts a curse on him. She sets a trap for him with a demon. That's how he gets possessed. And there's also some reincarnation in this story. I forgot to mention. I won't go into what happens there either. I don't want to give away too much of the story. But anyway, so the majority of the story is the grandson having to deal with this man who did these horrible things to him and his grandmother to take the family property from him. And so a lot of the story is the relationship between them and like what happens with them over the years, and along the way there's a lot of demonic possession happening, reoccurring demonic possession. Overall, I found the story to be very entertaining. Thought it was well written. There's some slow parts. There was some times where it was a little hard to get through. There's a few times where I was like just kind of repeating the same stuff over and over again, and it might have been it's possible that she could have condensed it down a little bit more. There's some likable characters. There's some characters in it that should be likable, but I didn't really care for them. There's some redemption in the story, which if you like that kind of thing, it kind of felt like the terrible, horrible protagonist of the story may have gotten off a little easier than he should have, without saying too much. My biggest issue with the story was this, and this is only because my husband is a history major, about like his specialty is a revolutionary America. So I know, okay, his specialty is revolutionary America, and he has a huge interest in the history of Christmas. So this is my only qualm, and there's no way really that she would have known this. And in some ways it does not matter because this is a fictional story. It's a fictional story. But a lot of the stuff that she goes through is historically accurate. You know, she's talking about the planting and the slave time and the historical events that happen around the time, and she paints a very realistic picture of this time period in Virginia history, in American history. She did not know this. In colonial America, Christmas was not really a thing. It wasn't a big deal. People didn't really give each other gifts. They didn't do a lot of decorating. Wasn't a lot of Christmas parties and stuff. It just wasn't really a thing yet. What we really know of Christmas comes from Charles Dickens. That's what our Christmas really is. It's thanks to Charles Dickens, who didn't come around until the 1800s. So there's some time before Christmas becomes what we know of as Christmas today. And because it's this traditional thing where we build so much nostalgia and sentimentalism and tradition into it, we think that it was always like that, right? Christmas is always like that. That's always the way we've done it. That's the way my parents did it. That's the way my grandparents did it. Christmas has always been this way. Incorrect. False. Christmas was not really celebrated in colonial America. Not like we do it now. And in the story, there's a couple times Christmas comes around, and she pretty much has it like we do it now. If you happen to ever watch this woo-woo book review, just so you know, historically inaccurate. But like I said, this is a fictional story, and I would never have even known that that was the case, except my husband is obsessed with colonial America and Christmas time. Anyway, I liked this book. Like I said, there's a few little slow parts, but there's plenty of woo-woo to go around. Plenty. And I still think the real woo-woo part of this whole situation with this Tidewater Possession book was how it wove its way into my personal life. How it waited there on Etsy for me for 10 years until I would really understand what was happening in it. And then I was reading it while I was in Tidewater. You can't make this stuff up, people. You just can't make it up. Anyway, that's my review of The Tidewater Possession by D.A. Clifford. And, so yeah, if you're interested, go find it. Go find her on Etsy. Look it up. Maybe it's on Amazon. I don't know. I didn't look to see if it was on Amazon. But I bet you can find it if you're interested in this book. Thank you for watching this. If you enjoyed it, please remember to give it a thumbs up. There's other woo-woo book reviews if this is your first one, so go watch some more. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It's very much appreciated. I'll be back with another woo-woo book review before you know it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!